Life is about three things: help a lot of people, have a lot of fun, make a lot of money. And I put them in that order.
Darren Prince, a world-renowned sports and celebrity agent who's represented icons like Muhammad Ali, Magic Johnson, Charlie Sheen, and David Goggins.
I'm walking in with the kings and queens, let's face it. There's alpha, and then there's the alphas of the alphas.
He's the best-selling author of Aiming High, a memoir about overcoming a near-fatal drug addiction and the profound lessons he's learned about fame, self-love, and the true meaning of success. How do you get people to make a change before it's rock bottom?
I'm giving you the keys to change your life.
What was your process of healing and developing that self-love?
I am the best version of my fucked up self I've ever been.
I want to start with a quote from your book. You can have all the success in the world, but if you don't have yourself, you have nothing. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate why you wrote that?
Because it took me a long time to realize what that meant. You know, I was living from an external space so much of my life where I felt, look at me and look how far Darren Prince has come, and I was the one that wasn't supposed to make it, and look at my life now. But you know, that comes from a lack mentality. It comes from a very broken, insecure place. We all have trauma, and you know, there's quite a bit of trauma that was attached to that.
Yeah.
And I think there's different levels of trauma. You know, mine was being verbally teased, being in small classrooms, being called dumb, idiot, whatever it might have been. So I think it's the same sense it motivated me, and thank God I had the father that I had, you know, help guide me in the right direction in business. I really didn't understand what true, real self-love meant from the inside, which is actually real success. And that started when I first got sober. Kept doing the work one day at a time, and still here, 16 and a half years later, still do the work. Most people don't understand that. And let me tell you, you got a lot of them right here in Miami. A lot of people, I won't mention names, that I'm very close with. And it's all about the jets and the mansions and the cars and the jewelry. How about somebody take some time to talk about, maybe you're giving a free education course away to as many people that want to sign up, about how you got there, and don't make it about money. Maybe you made a big charitable contribution. I know some people want to remain anonymous, but it just doesn't happen enough. And it's such a broken society. And I said it on Jay Shetty, and it was one of the most profound things that I said, because he was taken back. Do you know how many 30, 40, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds have all the money in the world, as accomplished that can be, and they're still broken as heck? And you know what? Darren Prince ain't. Darren Prince is here to tell you every fucking thing about me. I'm a degenerate drug addict. I have my own issues with women over the years. I have not always been perfect. I just love the fact that I can be an open friggin' book, and you take it or leave it, because it is what it is. I'm going to tell you the most real, raw stuff about me. But then if I'm triggered by something, by somebody, I'm going to call your ass out too, because I've learned in recovery, I'm not a friggin' doormat, and I wouldn't put up with people that are lying, deceptive, trying to take advantage of me. And as a healer, which you're in that vibration, you pick up on these things pretty friggin' quickly.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Dude, and what I love about your story is it's kind of like the epitome of what it means to be at the top, but be at the bottom at the same time. And your story of overcoming is so inspiring. But there's a lot of people listening to this podcast. I would theorize that almost everyone listening to, if not everyone, is really ambitious, working towards big goals. Everyone wants to prove themselves or make a name for themselves, or they want to go do big things in this world. And it's such a trap at times when you're pursuing these big goals. You kind of get lost in yourself and you get further away from who you really are, trying to get all this external praise and all this validation from the world. Just so people have context on what this looked like in your life, because I think your example is so inspiring. Take me back to like the peak of your career, right? In the Ali era, where you have all these big celebrity clients and you're the man. Like, give me the picture of what that looked like from the outside, and then contrasted with what that was like on the inside.
When you come from, I was from Livingston, New Jersey, upper middle class suburban area predominantly, a lot of tight-knit Italian families, Jewish families. And everybody's always trying to sort of outdo each other. Every parent wants to build up their kids, blow them up. They're doing great in college, this and that. And I was able to be very successful at a young age. Started a mail order baseball card company at 14 in 1984. that I eventually sold for $1 million at 19, and I dropped out of college because of it. So I still believe, just being around that vibration and that culture, it was always about, okay, what's next? What else I can do? What else can I do to show the haters that, Darren Prince, did make it to the top and you all made fun of me? And I had this conversation with Mike Tyson once, who I've worked with, over the years, a tremendous guy. We were in Orlando in his hotel suite one time, alone one night. My boy Vo went down to get him some bottled water, and it was like the best 10 minutes ever had with Mike. And he said it too, 19 years old, 200 million in the bank, king of the world, but who gave him my handbook, how to deal with life? And I go, Mike, on a smaller scale, I understand that, bro. I'm like, I had it too. Who tells you how to act, how to behave? Where's the college course? Where's the common sense when you're rolling with the most recognized human being on earth, and probably potentially of all time? I mean, Ali's been the most written about celebrity, talked about ever. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records for that. And then Smoking Joe Frazier, his counterpart, became a second father figure. And then you've got, Magic Johnson, obviously, and Pamela Anderson in her peak, the baddest woman in the world, in her peak.
Yeah.
So now I'm rolling around with them at 24, 25, 26 years old. Deep down, I'm still that broken, insecure soul. Who teaches me how to deal with the biggest stars in the room becoming little kids? Because I'm walking in with the kings and queens. Let's face it. There's famous, there's alpha, and then there's the alphas of the alphas. And I'm with them. So the biggest stars in the world are coming over to me, asking me, hey, can I get in there, say hello? Can I take a photo? Publicists, the biggest agents, managers. And then he got the part with the woman. Who teaches you about that? I was always respectful. Never had a problem with a woman I ever dated or was with. But my God, it just became a whole nother level of addiction because it gave me validation. Yeah. It was that nerdy, quiet kid from the back of the room in the small classrooms that wasn't really interested in women until he was about 18 years old. And I was actually made fun of by my guy friends and the girls that would all hang out with on weekend parties. They'd be leaving me voicemail messages. These girls, I'll never forget it. We both, know lingerie well, and we've actually discussed it. So I remember a girl when I was 16 that wanted to date me. I didn't know the first thing about a woman, and they were all drinking wine coolers. She left a message on my voicemail, Darren, get over here. I want to see you. Stop playing with your stupid baseball cards. But in a way, like that also drove me. I listened to that, and it's kind of funny when I went back for our high school reunion, everybody was there, and, I'm the one that everyone's like, holy crap.
It's interesting though, because on the surface, you had everything at a young age, right? You're 24, you have a sports agency, you're representing the biggest icons, Muhammad Ali, later Joe Frazier, Magic Johnson, who was your first client, who helped you pick up Chevy Chase, Charlie Sheen. I mean, you're 24 in these rooms with these titans. You would think people are like, wow, I would feel so good about myself if I could only accomplish that. But you're saying that even in the midst of all that success and having all the applause of the world, you didn't feel fulfilled or even proud of yourself. You didn't love yourself despite all that.
There was never one plane flight, never a lunch, never a dinner, never a breakfast, never an event where I wasn't high for any of that. Every single time I had to get out of myself because I never felt worthy of it. And the anxiety of the pressure of learning how the game works and, where to have the security when the private jet and blocking off certain streets, with getting in touch with the police officers at the airport for different, exits outside the terminal if they're not flying private, or at an event, understanding walkthroughs and getting with security and event coordinators. And a lot of it I wanted to do myself at first, even though I had a couple of people working for me, because I did realize that if one thing goes wrong, they're not looking at my assistant. The talent's looking at me. So if anyone's going to screw it up, it's going to be me. But every time, no matter how many times, even to this day, Magic's assistant, Natalie, who I love more than life, she's now the executive vice president. She's incredible. She always laughs because I will deal with his SUV every single time. I don't even care, because I had it happen once before where something went a little bit off, and I could tell he's disappointed. He understood that, it happens, but I never want that feeling again. Magic Johnson doesn't need Darren Prince and Prince Marketing Group in his life, Guy's got a multi-billion-dollar empire. So I got to make sure, as with any of them, that they feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And they know that when they're getting on a plane, they're getting in the car, they're showing up somewhere. I mean, even a few weeks ago with Carmen Electra, she had a shoot, and she was over the moon because both my girls, Matilda and Carla, went there to make sure everything was set up properly with the makeup, and she knew I was coming. And just that little effort to show up for 2 hours. My girls in the office said they never saw her so excited. She literally jumped out of her dressing room, and it's the personal touch. It's everything. I think in any line of work, especially in my line of work.
Especially in your line of work.
I tell people all the time, stop focusing on the freaking money. Focus on the relationship. Get to know them, because your network is your net worth.
Definitely.
And my superpower, I don't even say it arrogantly, is relationship building at the highest level.
Isn't that interesting, though? You built the profound, deep relationships with, society's most esteemed people, but then the relationship you neglected was with yourself. On that same vein, what were you so insecure about? Like you said you felt unworthy in this sharing space with those people, even though they're your clients. But like, what was it that you were so insecure about?
I think there was just a lot of unresolved issues from growing up, being told that I couldn't do this, I wouldn't do that. I barely get into college, into a basic studies program. I think a lot of my friends that went to law school or became doctors, even though they had their own success and mine was clearly miles ahead of theirs, it stays with you. Mm-hmm. You know, it stays with you. These friends had to come over to the house to tutor me, to help me, and I was still failing, and I just couldn't get it. And when I speak to high school kids especially, I talk about because I never spoke up, because I took it with me. So it's still in here, in here, and in here, and it's still in here. Mm. But the external Darren is up here. You don't just snap your fingers and it goes away. It's still in you. Mm-hmm. That's why I love speaking to like the younger generation, you know, especially men and women in their 20s now, man. The whole culture is so whacked out. Everything's about money and success and, oh, I'm good, forget my trauma. No, you guys are going to be in your early 30s and mid 30s, and depression, bipolar, suicide. Yeah. It's going to be an all-time high.
You're still the same broken kid with a nicer watch.
You can have a tough exterior. You could be bodybuilding. You could freaking do your posts. You could talk about your success.
Yeah.
You're all going down. I guarantee it, unless you get to a point where you have that come to Jesus moment and be like, my way's not working. I'm sick and tired of putting on this front. I'm sick and tired of showing all the success, but when I'm alone in my head, just miserable.
Where did the addiction begin for you?
Sleepaway camp. I was 14, and I probably told you this story the first time we did our interview, and just terrible stomach pains, but looking back at it now.
It was Demerol.
Demerol. Yeah. It's funny because Lisa Capera, my good friend and business partner, is with me from Lisa's Goodies, and we joke around, but certain patterns that parents put into you stay with you.
Yes.
And my mom was so overbearing, so over-coddling, that when I first went to sleepaway camp, I thought I was having just severe stomach pains, but it was anxiety. So I got them both confused because I grew up a mama's boy, and I didn't know what to do being in a camp without my mom. The first night the counselor took me to the infirmary, they gave me this clear cough syrup cup with green liquid in it. Tasted terrible, but within 2 to 3 minutes, it changed my life forever. Every one of those insecurities, inadequacies went away like that.
Disappeared.
Got back to the bunk. I'm laughing with the guys. They're laughing with me, not at me. I flirted with girls in the bunk next to me for the first time. Went to bed that night thinking nothing of it. Woke up the next morning, did all the activities in camp. And that next night, I learned how to lie and con because I was just obsessing over that feeling. And I did it for 3 straight weeks until my mom and dad came up for visitation day and found that I was taking liquid Demerol. And, you know, here's the thing. Like, I can't blame my mom. Like, to me, my father was the perfect father. I get it, they're your kids. But I think sometimes parents need to work a little bit more on their traumas, knowing that they're bringing children into the world.
Yeah.
Because you could pass that generational behavior issues over to your kids.
Yes.
Now I work through it clearly. I love my mom more than life. Now I'm the one that's the caretaker and doing everything to look out for her, and we could joke around about it. But, you know, I don't regret it. I don't regret anything in my past because I think if I didn't have the mother that I had, I wouldn't be become the Darren Prince that's sitting here today.
That's well said. I think about what drives us fundamentally to do what we do in life. One thing that I feel is pretty concrete is that our voids create what we value, right? Our voids create values. So whatever we experience as a void in our childhood, we overvalue that as adults. And so when I reflected back, I was like, when I was a kid, I felt super lonely. I was moving around for my mom's job. I felt like the outsider. I felt like the weird kid, didn't have like the concrete relationships. I didn't feel like I belonged. I felt very alone in the world. And you fast forward that, you know, I built an executive recruiting company and I'm literally a super connector. And my job is to know thousands of the most important people similar to you, where I just felt like so unseen and unimportant and unspecial when I was a kid that I wanted to go overcompensate by building this massive network of relationships to insulate me from ever having to feel alone again.
Yep.
Right. Can you see how that void in you then projected out into what you ended up doing?
100%. I mean, you just said it perfectly. I mean, that's exactly it. But I also think when we try to fill that void with other people and other individuals, other activities, good or bad, we're still neglecting ourselves.
Yeah.
We're still not closing up that hole in our soul.
Yes.
And you know, you and I spoke for a couple hours about a month ago, and we're just so both into that, you know, vibration about now life is, got to surround yourself with the right people. Got to surround yourself with the action takers. My dad used to say the idea is 1%, carrying it through is the other 99. There's so many people full of crap out there.
So true.
And if I get, you know, the littlest feeling of somebody, I learn to kind of just push away, because nobody's going to take me off the spiritual beam that I'm on. And understanding, manifesting, doing the work one day at a time. My routine is just crazy. From being up in the morning, I've got my grounding mat. I even take one with me when I travel, little patches. So I do that for an hour. It's hydrogen water. It's all my 10X supplements. Gary Breck is a dear friend and never felt better. It's working out. It's dieting the best that I can, at least 5-6 days a week. It's red light therapy.
Right.
It's my ice bath.
You're taking care of you. You're building a relationship with yourself.
Recovery meeting. So I have no sympathy, to be honest with you. I don't need people to be like me, but I got a lot of people in my life that talk about not being where they want to be. Mm-hmm. Well, then don't tell me if you're not happy with where you are, if you're not willing to at least listen a little bit to what I'm telling you to do. Because I know what works, and I've seen it. So if I could help somebody in their early 30s that's struggling, or mid 20s or whatever, and they ask me, I'm giving you the keys to change your life.
What do you
I'm telling you what didn't work for me.
But you know what's interesting, Darren, is like you hit rock bottom. I think it was, what was the date where you had?
Well, the date I got sober was July 2nd, 2008. That was it.
That
was when I had the gift of desperation.
Right. And if you go back to that moment, that's when you flushed the pills down the toilet. You had your spiritual awakening.
I screamed out to God, take the money, take the business, take the notoriety. If I can get a single day of freedom, I will spend one day at a time taking others out of hell. And I had a white light moment then, never had one before, never had it since. A lightning bolt to my right shoulder. I heard the voice say, I've got you when you're ready. I stood up, and somehow 30 minutes later, I found myself in a church basement in the Upper 80s in New York City. It's a 12-step meeting where, you know, I felt a part of something for the first time in my life. It wasn't about the celebrities. This was life and death. This was an extended family that understood me better than anybody in my life.
Yes.
And we understood what it was like to be high and drinking and partying. And more importantly, we understood what it was like wanting to, but not being able to.
You had that big awakening, right? And there was over a decade of addiction prior to that, right?
24 years.
24 years. So 2.5 almost decades.
Multiple
going through
overdoses.
Multiple overdoses. Like this almost killed you. But it took that big moment after 24 years. So when we're talking to other people about making changes, it's interesting because like you're like, please learn from my experience. But then you're like, maybe you need to go through something big to actually catalyze that for you. So the question is really, how do you get people to make a change before it's rock bottom?
I mean, I always say you have to understand that you got to get to a point where the fear of making a change is not as big as the fear of staying the same. People sometimes just fear getting out of the uncomfortable, because the comfortable doesn't seem real. It doesn't seem possible.
Yeah.
They're so used to a certain behavioral pattern of anxiety, fear, lack. You got to find it within you.
Yeah.
You know, how many more years do you want to keep living a certain way if you're not where you are health-wise, if you're not where you are financially, if you're not where you are romantically? There's so many different ways where you can have breakthroughs and just throw your freaking damn hands up and say, I need help. I don't care what it is that you're struggling with. There's so many good people in all different walks of life right now that you can find online, on Twitter, Facebook. Follow their messages, Instagram. Just follow their page. People ask me, like, what, who do I follow and whatnot on social media? Obviously you. I don't follow many, but Lewis Howes is a dear friend. Jay Shed is a dear friend. Gary V, Tony Robbins and Adina Himmel. That's what I want to see every day when I wake up. I want to see their messages going into my heart, into my soul. David Goggins, been his agent for 2.5 years. Same thing.
Yeah.
Like, he's my boy. That's what I want to take in. I don't give a crap about some guy posting a friggin' Lamborghini or a friggin' Ferrari. They're the ones that are looking at David Goggins.
Yeah,
He's my guy. So why am I wasting time?
Totally.
You know what I'm saying? Some of the people I'm around, like, those guys are literally considered poor compared to, I was with Jerry West, who I miss so much every day past June 12th, and we're sitting at the friggin' LA Clippers game, LA Clippers Summer League game in Vegas, with Dennis Rodman too, with Steve Ballmer. Nobody you and I know collectively can touch that man's net worth. $200 billion. $200 billion. And the most humble guy you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
In regular slacks, no jewelry. Will buy and sell the top 10 people you and I know in this room put together.
Yeah.
And not even put a dent at $200 billion. So when I see that, look at Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
He doesn't I saw an interview the other day where he talks about he only buys a hash brown.
Yeah.
If the market's up, and traditionally he's done this. But it's not the money thing.
Yeah.
It's a discipline. It's a mindset.
It's a psychological thing.
No, I get it. Like, Warren Buffett's still driving the same Cadillac STS from 15 years. It's still a little extreme.
Yeah.
When you make it, don't get me wrong, enjoy your life. But you're also blessed with abundance, so you're able to bless other people,
right?
Other organizations. Don't just make it about I and me. Do what you can to give back, because that's just never been me. I might be a little bit harder on it now because I have healed. I don't know if you and I grew up together in the mid-90s and social media was around, if we're honest with each other, and we're hanging out with my celebrities and we're on private jets and sitting ringside at the biggest fights and courtside. We might have been the same way. It might have been a flex, because at that age, it kind of...
Well, dude, you're right. But I think there's a hero's journey here, right? Like, because initially at some point we're younger, like you and I both experienced, at some point through social conditioning, we decided that we weren't enough, that who we were naturally just was not good enough. And so we created these characters to go thrive in the world so we could get respect and admiration and love. And those characters actually served us really well. Like, neither of us would be sitting here having this conversation if we didn't build those characters, right? But simultaneously, neither of us would be in this place of peace and love and abundance and freedom if we hadn't killed those characters.
Of course.
Right? And so there's that hero's journey. And like, there's a lot of people in that phase where they're in that kind of fuck you energy phase where they're like, I got to prove the world wrong. And that served you and I well for a certain period of time. But I think eventually you have to let that character go and then re-engage with your true self and go through that healing process. And so I hope people that are listening, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs, executives, people that, they're used to hearing a lot of tactics on how to grow their business or personal development. That's all valuable, but what the fuck is the point if you can't enjoy your life and your mind's not right? And the more that you achieve, like the bigger agency, the bigger celebrities you have, the more money you have, the more prestige, you said the more empty and broken you felt, because it only magnified how empty you felt. And so when you expect to do something externally to get an internal result and you don't ever get it, it's just exhausting, right? And so I think the interesting thing is, can people take this and say, all right, well, I might be in that phase where I'm in that fuck you energy where I'm building as my character, but eventually you got to realize you got to graduate, right? Yep. It's part of your evolution.
And I don't suggest what you and I did because I believe with this generation, 20 and 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds, I don't think they're ever going to remove themselves from that character. It comes to a point where you're just burying it deeper and deeper and deeper in your soul.
Yeah.
To the point where health ailments start happening, health issues, psychological issues, and you don't know why. Well, it's real freaking easy to figure out why you've been suppressing all your crap and your trauma, like Joe Dispenza always talks about, for freaking 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, and no, you didn't come from a perfect family. None of us did.
Yeah.
Let's face it. Goggins and I laughed a few days ago. We're in Chicago, and he goes, anybody that tells they come perfect family, I'll tell them how fucked up their situation must have been, because we're all fucked up. and the sooner we could call ourselves out on that, the world will be a better place.
One of my coaches,
so many people
shared a line with me that changed my life, and he said, when you can shine light on your darkness, you become limitless.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point, is we all just are so freaking insecure about things. And we kind of like Eminem in 8 Mile, you know, when he disses himself at the end and no one else can diss him. We're so afraid to show our full selves, right? And then we're just feeding these characters, man. I got to go build a public company and take it to billions in revenue. I've got to have this type of relationship. I need to use these certain emblems. And it's like kind of played out, and it's trite because everyone talks about it, but like I don't think people get real enough about it, where it's like that sometimes you do have to go through that hero's journey, I think, and experience it to actually see, okay, this did not make me feel how I wanted to feel. But I think if we can change the narrative of success, and like someone like you who's been at the fucking top of the world, who's just so raw and honest of saying this shit will not do anything to make you truly happy. Like examples like that might make somebody on that journey think differently about how they're living.
And that's why I do what I do. I do it not just for the youth that's so hyper-focused on external success. So many of them are struggling.
Yeah.
Where I want them to be able to identify with me, because I know they all look up to me, and they'll look me up online and see some of my interviews and podcasts and speeches and who I work with. But that's not what you should be impressed about. I said it on Omar's podcast. You know, it was one of his favorite clips that when I'm gone, and hopefully it's 40 years from now, because I'm feeling great and I'm doing the 10X routine and a lot of other health initiatives, I don't care about anything about the age in life. Like on my tombstone, if it's a man that went deep into hell and came out on the other side to take others out and sprinkle hope and recovery across the world, that's legacy. That's what I want to be known for. Because the other stuff is bullshit. That's just my job. That's my career. That's what I've done. I've been able to find a way to leverage and build some of the most incredible relationships in the world from it. So when Aiming High came out, everybody was affected by it, because so it's not a single person, I think, in America now that doesn't know somebody suffering from the opiate epidemic.
Absolutely. I'm curious, because you come up, you're at the top of the world, you're going through this addiction, you have your divine awakening moment, you quit, you go in through recovery, but then that's kind of where the journey starts, right? Like you're like, damn, this is a long journey, but now it's just starting now. So for people that might be in that same situation that can relate, like what was your process of healing and developing that self-love?
So I've had many different stages of it. First, it was just about the meetings, getting a sponsor. My guy, Steve Delaval, I hate calling him that because he's like a big brother now. Italian guy from Newark, did his time. He's got 37 years sober now, and he was my lifeline. And we just spoke over the weekend. It was literally one day at a time, putting one foot in front of the other. On those days I wanted to relapse. On those days I wanted to pick up so bad because I was crawling out of my skin, and I would just call him short-fused and so agitated. And he'd be like, here's what I want you to do. Try to get to bed early. He goes, in the morning, if you don't feel good, get high tomorrow. Everything was always about trying to find a way to calm myself in that moment, read the big book, 12-step literature, calling other people, and then we can deal with getting high tomorrow. And what I learned was the thought always passes. So there was never that tomorrow of me getting high. And little by little, it was almost like a heavyweight championship fighter. I was training my spiritual core. Then when those moments came, all of a sudden it was just like, get out of here. No. Not breaking me down. I know exactly what I need to do. And you could feel it up here. You could feel this ain't about motivating people. saying about a motivational speaking, getting up there and yelling and screaming. This is the ultimate strength. And most people are too weak to understand that because they're so blinded by whatever physical abilities they have or the corporate success that they have. No, when you can make this work for you and understand the power of the brain and the power of the mind, and having the blessing and privilege to spend so much time around David Goggins now, that's mastered callousing your brain and your mind better than any human possibly ever with what he's doing. I get that, that we're not responsible for our thoughts, but as human beings, we are responsible for how long we want to think those thoughts. So it's up to you how long you want to roll around in it. You want to have it impact you all throughout the day? You want to have a freaking nervous breakdown in the morning and then in 10 minutes catch yourself and do whatever routine you have to do to get out of your own way to speak to other people that might be struggling in life, where that'll hum you real quick to realize that this isn't that bad. Yeah. It's different tools in the toolbox for each person, depending on what works.
How did you get over that feeling? You mentioned you had a feeling that you were dumb, you weren't worthy, all these things that were stuck in your system from childhood. Like, how did you rewire that or let those go?
Well, we have the 12 steps of recovery. So the 12 steps of recovery worked. And then early on, I was asked to start speaking at meetings, and I didn't know anything about speaking. Then I was asked to lead the meeting. So what happened was I realized that the fellowship was a program for living. And I felt like I was in high school again. I was never going to graduate. And I realized that I wasn't dumb. And I realized that things that I was saying, words that God was putting into my mouth at any given meeting, at any given speech, at every given rehab I went to talk, there's some magical words coming out of my mouth. And I would see the lights come on in somebody's eyes that was struggling. And sometimes in a general college or something where these students had no idea what I was going to talk about. And I was very, new into sobriety and kind of gave it my best shot. But I realized, oh my God, this is like working. There's like people's lives are getting changed. And I realized that self-esteem and self-worth would come, as it does for everybody. Some might not realize this, from doing esteemable acts. When you're a service to other people, when you're helping other people, you want to feel good about yourself. It's ain't about money. It's about somebody calling you up, sending you a DM, whatever it might be, sending you a text. Thanks so much, man, for that call. It really helped me. Or, thank you for your Aiming High Foundation scholarship. And I told you about the Uber guy that just celebrated 30 days sober 2 days ago. That out of 4 random Ubers, the one that I picked, this guy was struggling with substance abuse. 5 days later, I sent him to a treatment center. My brother Brandon Novak has him at Novak's house in Delaware now, and we paid every dime. There's not a business deal in the world that can compare to that. His mom and his dad are talking to him again. Kids can't wait to see him. I love people that are motivating, and I love listening to certain motivational speakers and Tony Robbins. But it's like, man, when you can save a life, it's different. It's a whole different thing. Because, when you listen to Eric Thomas is incredible too. But again, they're making these people fly. They're making these people succeed.
It's caffeine.
Savage mode.
Yeah.
But what are you doing with in here and in here and in here? How do you still not know that they're so messed up here with depression? And so again, it's that surface success at times. And like I said, they're incredible. I listen to all their stuff, but there's no real way, unless they're spending a one-on-one, that they really follow. These guys also have some other things going on because their platforms are so big. It's so hard for them to communicate with everybody. So I've always thought there should be a little bit more emphasis on the mental health, self-worth, self-esteem.
I like the way you said that, though. If you want to build self-esteem, do esteemable acts. So that's actually simply profound in that way. Because at first it sounds like you had to overcome yourself, right? You just had to get over the addiction and have that not control you anymore so you could actually live with purpose. But then you took your pain and you alchemized it into your purpose, right? Because you have deep empathy, compassion for people that are going through really hard shit. And so you actually finally expressing this and owning it and sharing it with the world and sharing your message and working with people one-on-one, that was your healing, right? and help and liberating other lives, that was also liberating you at the same time.
And sticking with the pact that I made with God. You know,
what was the pact you made?
If you take me out of hell, I will spend one day at a time taking others out with me. And I think I've done that for 16 and a half years now. And he knows it. And it's why all these crazy synchronicities happen in my life continuously on a daily basis.
Yeah.
We have some things sometimes where something happens, she's like, oh my God, I'm like, and I'll tell her, it's me. It's happening because it's me. I know my vibration. I know my frequency. We might talk about something, all of a sudden, boom, it shows up in a restaurant. It's just like, you know, it happens a lot when I'm by myself.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be thinking about something.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden a commercial comes on with exactly what I was thinking about within 20, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Because it's the authenticity. It's, I think when you're living again in a certain frequency of healing, helping, service to others.
Yes.
Like Dave Meltzer says, another spiritual brother of mine, life is about three things: help a lot of people, have a lot of fun, make a lot of money. And I put him in that order because
the last one just magnifies your ability to do the other two more.
Yeah. Yep. Like I love the successful part of my life, but anybody tell you, I don't do much for me. It's just outside of like investments and everything else. You know, I've got my new partnership now with the Legacy Fund with my boy Ammo. He spoke to, and Dominique Wilkins and Kevin Harrington. But that you know, I depend on them for that. I let my advisors I'm very like two-dimensional now. It's recovery and helping people and PMG. You know, maybe throw in there my own routine to take care of me.
Right.
So those three things are good. I don't need to be the guy anymore that's like, I need to be a billionaire. That does nothing for me.
Does nothing for you.
Nothing.
I'm curious because a lot of people, including myself, I've been at these points too, and I've talked to a lot of friends that have talked about this. Like, hey, I want to heal. I want to find inner peace, but I'm afraid if I heal, I'm going to lose my motivation. If I fill that void, what's going to motivate me to go build this company and achieve all this success? And like, your ego's really attached to doing that thing, so it'll sabotage any efforts of healing, right? So I'm curious for you, after this healing process now where you've separated from this character that you created and you're fully in your authenticity, do you feel less ambitious?
It's interesting you said that because I just had this talk with Ammo a couple of days ago. And I'm meeting with some marketing people on Thursday about some thoughts that I had with my brand and Magic and some of my clients. And I literally told them, I'm like, I found such a place of peace and joy in my life that I don't need to have world domination with business anymore. I was like, I've got everything I need. That might not be everything I want at times, but it happens on God's time. So what I've decided to start doing and not compromise the life that I've built, the genuine life of being real and full of self-love and inner peace, being able to be of service to others, is I've surrounded myself with others that understand what my mission is, that are at that level on the business front to handle things that I necessarily don't want to be involved in. So I've used my network to then bring the best of the best around me to say, I'm not going to be that guy on 20 different Zoom calls today. Not happening. It's not my personality anymore. But you're now going to take my life's work and your skill set and everything that you know and monetize and mesh and blend everything to handle that end for me.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yep. And I think anybody that's nervous about that can do the same thing, because if you've gotten to the success like me or past it, you know it's about who you surround yourself with.
It's so true. I'm curious too, because it's not every day where you talk to someone who's been so close with such interesting human beings too, right? Like, you were best friends with Muhammad Ali, going to fights with him, sitting ringside. Like, you got to know him really well. I'm curious, just as a kind of third party, what was it like? What did you learn from being so close with Muhammad Ali?
Well, I think I learned a lot from both of them, Ali and Frazier. I spent a lot more time with Joe, even though I started a few years later. Joe was in Philly. I was in New Jersey, so we were an hour and a half away. Ali was either based out of Arizona or Berrien Springs. And thankfully, my dear friend Harlan Warner, who was like the head of the Ali team, brought me in. And my God, I mean, I would get to spend time with him alone in a hotel suite. He'd be signing autographs, watching TV. Smoking Joe was just as bad of a mofo that ever existed, man. I mean, I remember times being at the MTV VMAs and Eminem and Bono and Beyonce had a cover magazine party for my boy Jason Binns got the magazine, and he called and said Beyonce and her dad would be honored if Joe would come to the event. And he just treated people the same way Ali did. They both said the same thing, that Joe felt the nicer he was, that the Lord would recognize that when he got to the pearly gates. And Muhammad would say the nicer he is to people, the closer to Allah he would get when he died. And these guys were the kings of kings. So at times now when I see certain celebrities, influencers, the behavior of this generation, they all worship those guys. To see sometimes how they behave, how they act, it's no reason for it. That whole narcissistic, do you know who I am? Oh, those guys would be losing their mind right now if they saw what society become, because they were the kings of all kings. And I remember, the story for the intro to my book, Aiming High, sitting center court with Ali and Frazier at the 2002 NBA All-Star Game after having a private dinner in Ali's suite the night before, where I finally saw these two kings of kings make peace. Put it this way, you know how big Ali was? Elvis Presley gave him a custom robe and was honored to meet him in Vegas.
He was the king of all kings.
Yeah. So when you hear that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There was nobody that, and Joe met so many. Joe never got to meet Elvis either, but be sitting there with them center court. And we had MJ and Kobe was playing, and Iverson and Magic and Cookie were 5 seats to my left. Justin Timberlake was dating Britney Spears at the time, and Diddy was there too. I mean, they were all coming over trying to take pictures. And it got to a point where they didn't want to be bothered. So I had to tell security to keep everybody away. Doesn't matter who they are. They're trying to enjoy this moment amongst themselves.
Wow.
And after Alicia Keys sang America the Beautiful, it was hard for Muhammad to sit down. Joe had his arm. You can look the photo up online. It's very iconic. I was actually standing next to me. I had his arm inside Ali's arm, holding him up. When everybody sat down, the spotlight went on both of them. This was All-Star Weekend, so there had to be 1 billion people around the world watching this, and everybody just got going nuts, gets back on their feet. They're going crazy. They're both like kind of waving, and they sit down, and Ali leans over to Joe, and he goes, "Yo, champ." And Joe leans back, he goes, "Yeah, champ." Now I'm losing my mind because they both acknowledge each other as champ. I'm literally crying. I'm like, I can't believe this. This is unbelievable. Yeah. The respect to finally hear that. Muhammad goes, "We're still 2 bad brothers, aren't we?" And he goes, "Yes, we are." Yeah, it was just like they had such a different level of integrity and class, and just understanding they were champions to the world. They weren't champions of the world. They were champions to the world. Just to be around that and know the difference between right and wrong from them and the way they treated people. And, some of the stories I heard, especially Joe, growing up as son of a sharecropper in Beaufort, South Carolina, having to drop out of school at 10th grade to take care of the family. And, even Ali and the racism both those guys put up with, and black people's water, white people's water. You can't go to this side of the town. I'm like, oh my God. And both to become, especially Ali, such advocates against, what was going on in the world.
It's interesting because on one end, he had the character too, right? I said I was the greatest before I even knew I was, right? You have to build this ego in the sports sense, but you're saying they were able to carry these big egos in the ring, out of the ring. They're just the kindest human beings ever.
100%. I mean, if it wasn't a press conference, we lost Joe November 7th, 2011. Ali passed, I think, June 16th, 2017, or 16. I wasn't always in my right mindset when I was working with them, but I did get the beautiful experience of working with Smoke and Joe for 3 years when I was sober. And the couple times I saw Ali after that, the Parkinson's got bad. It was nice to see him and nice to be present. And then when Joe passed away, I had the privilege of escorting Lonnie, Ali, and Muhammad to his memorial and his funeral. To see Ali after Jesse Jackson asked everybody to get up and give a shout out for their brothers, Smoke and Joe Frazier, and Muhammad stood clapping for 2 more minutes after everybody sat down. And to be right there to see it, my God.
What was the proudest moment of your career?
Definitely something in recovery. I could tell you that because I used to think it was 2002 NBA All-Star Weekend.
You would think it's like bringing Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, two legends together, uniting them. Like, that's incredible.
It was for sure. It's definitely at the top. But I'm trying to give you something as the new Darren.
Right. That was like Prince marketing Darren.
Yeah.
But now there's Darren.
That was the pre-Darren. There's just so many, man. I mean, the conversations I have with Magic to this day and Hulk and...
How have your relationships changed? Like, Magic was with you for well over a decade while you're in the midst of this. Like, now you're sober.
We're in our 30th year together.
30 years with Magic Johnson. Like, how has your relationship changed with Magic since you've gotten sober?
I think my proudest moment is the love and the respect that I've gotten from my clients at an all-time high now. Having nothing to do with business. They already have wealth beyond, anybody can fathom. But the fact that I can call Hulk Hogan, a.k.a. Terry Bollea, call him by his real name, the day before the first hurricane. We had a 30-minute call. And 29 and a half minutes was about life. And just tell me, brother, you are so dialed in. I needed you to call me. This was so good. He's like, here's the most recognized humans, beloved figures on earth. I have those moments a lot. I mean, I've had it even with Magic Johnson. There's nothing better. Charlie Sheen, Chevy Chase, Carmen, Dominique Wilkins. It's just, each time those moments happen, Mark Cuban was a big supporter of my book. His brother Brian's in recovery. Jeannie Buss is a dear friend, and Linda Rambis. Jeannie owns the Los Angeles Lakers. To have moments with them time and again where it never gets old, where it's not, people see me, oh my God, congratulations on that business deal. It's, I saw that clip that you posted. Thank you for posting that. I have a friend that it helped. I have a couple of people that saw it and said
it must have felt nice because you knew that those people that were larger than life, they loved Darren from Prince Marketing Group, right? But you're like, are they still gonna love me?
Yeah.
And then to go through that, and then the relationships get deeper because you're more authentic and they're not loving your mask, they're loving you. To know that those people loved you and stuck by you through everything, and those relationships got stronger over time, that's got to feel amazing.
Yep, it's amazing, and it's not just with them. I mean, it happens so often now where I can walk into a big corporate meeting, or whether it's Zoom or in person. I love when I get the opening to tell people who I really am.
Yeah.
So that's why I can't really pinpoint one moment, because they're always happening.
Yeah.
And each time I tell people who I am, there's always such magic in that room. The whole dynamic of the meeting changes.
Yeah.
The fact that some of the biggest executives in that company are actually forced to take a look at their lives and certain behavior. Because I just walked in as me, and I wanted to tell people who I am so they feel comfortable instead of what I do. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And it just never gets old, because I've actually had some pretty high-profile executives in some of those meetings call me after, send me a DM on Instagram, send me an email. Or actually, I've had it a couple of times where somebody's walked out with me and said, hey, man, I know you're busy. I'd love to talk to you for a minute. And it's been them that have been struggling. And they've been waiting to find somebody to have the courage to tell. Mm-hmm. And it gets me emotional every time, because I was like, God, who would have thought, my whole life was about the so-called super agent bullshit. But no, that had to happen to make me who I am today, so I can get in those meetings, so I can get in those tours. Of course, you want to try to get business done, but to actually impact people that are struggling, it's the greatest thing ever. Never gets old.
I love that, man. Like, I want to ask you this, because as a final message to people out there listening, there's people going through different stuff, right? I'm sure there's people listening that are battling with addiction. They're trying to overcome themselves and get sober, be productive again. There's people that might have lost their businesses they've poured 10 years into, or just went through a divorce and had their whole life turned upside down. For the people out there listening that are going through rock bottom, what message would you want to share with them?
You can't give up. First off, somebody always has it worse. There's a lot of times where we lose perspective. And we think this is just the worst catastrophe ever. But when you look in perspective, it's really not. And I think it's having the courage to ask somebody you know for help. It could be a friend, could be somebody that's a doctor, somebody that, you know, knows the right people. Because keeping it inside is not going to get you anywhere. It's going to dig a deeper, deeper hole. And I've seen people with the most incredible comebacks in life that you never thought would be here. So I know it's humanly possible. You know, I know my situation's a little bit different because I wasn't a bottom of the bottom. I was already at the top. But like my sponsor, Steve, used to tell me, yeah, you're the ones we find dead because you got the resources to get your hands on whatever you want to get on. So don't always think that just because you were a high bottom that, you know, you guys are privileged because you're the ones that more times than not we found out, you know, with a needle in their arm or, yeah, you know, whatever it might be. But I just know that if you have that willingness, if you have the courage to speak up, if you don't know individuals, give it a couple shots with the right psychiatrist, psychologist, because the strength is asking for the help. And when you get there and when you get on stable ground, you realize you can't look at the past and point fingers at this one, the ex-husband, the ex-wife, my mom, my dad. People sometimes are dealt with a bag of shit. What are you going to do with it? You know, it's like Goggins says, like, now it's up to us to fix that. How many times do you want to keep going back to the well and pointing fingers and saying, I'm not where I am because of this one or that one? You know, if you got screwed over by business partners and you got out of bad relationships and your life's not where you want it to be and you're blaming this one, I was like, no, you chose those people to be in your life. You chose those business partners. You chose that relationship. Let's get to the underlying pattern of why you needed whatever it was from that individual, from those partners, and break that cycle. Because there's some sort of disconnect and lack mindset that leads us to those decisions that we need to start doing the deep dive work on. Like I said, that you and I know who we've used to help that tremendously. And there's some great people out there, you know. There's some great programs out there. There's some great apps out there nowadays. You don't always have to run to a doctor. You know, some people I know are uncomfortable talking about this stuff or being too open about it. There's so many ways now that weren't around 16 and a half years ago when I got sober.
I do feel like it does take a tribe. Like you need people that are helping you, that you can be safe to express yourself with, and you can lean on, and that can help hold you accountable, can just talk through shit. I think it's so hard. You can't do these things alone.
Yep.
I love this, man. Well, you know how much I love you and respect you and admire you. And I feel like this is a nice switch up of pace too, because a lot of times we're like, all right, here's how to take your company from here to there. And it's like at the end of the day, the people listening, we're all going through this shit. All of us have insecurities. All of us are operating at some level of void. It's just so refreshing when someone of your stature too is just fucking open about it. It's like this, I'm fucked up. We're all fucked up. Like, let's just admit this stuff and work together, move on, and actually create an amazing life instead of trying to be these fucking characters.
I am the best version of my fucked up self I've ever been.
That is the best quote I've ever heard. I am the best version of my fucked up self I've ever been. That is the best thing I've heard.
We can leave it at that because healing's an ongoing journey, man, for every one of us. There's always little character defects that pop up, but if you stay in that lane of doing the work, you can get through them. But then more come up, and then more come up, and just navigate and just figure it out.
Dude, thank you so much for doing this, man. People are going to love this. And thanks for keeping it absolutely real and raw as always.